I'm joined by Dr. Colin Wilford, all the way from the US, an expert on leadership. He's a clinical psychologist and also a partner in Wilford Scholes Consulting. He has worked with leaders for a couple of decades, and we're really honored to have him with us. Colin Wilford, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be joining you so far across the globe.
Yeah. So just a quick introduction, and then we're going to spend just 4 or 5 minutes together on two very important questions. Leadership is in crisis all over the world, and we feel we need a global leadership conversation about how to change this. And to kick it off with conversation number 1, because we think there will be many more conversations, for the next 6 months to a year, we will on a regular basis be holding high-impact, short 5-minute authentic leadership conversations with top leaders all over the world, political, corporate, civic, spiritual. And we'll be discussing 2 essence questions, which I'll share with you in a moment. All these high-impact interview recordings will be placed on Global Leadership Platform, or GLP, where leaders from all over the world may add their voices and opinions and comments. So it's not just about interviewing top leaders. That only gets the conversation, or experts. That only gets the conversation going. All people's views are very important. And let me add quickly before we dig into the questions, this is just the beginning. We have taken almost 2 years to build GLP, or Global Leadership Platform, to take leadership conversations, content, leadership, all things leadership to the world. And in short, you could argue that this is a social media platform, but focused on leadership because the world needs it desperately. The platform has now been tested extensively, and we are ready to move forward. So let's get the conversation going. Dr. Wilford, what is the most important quality or attribute we need to develop or awaken or improve in leaders if we are going to turn around the current leadership crisis?
I think the first way I want to approach that question is to say this, and then I'll come back to answering your question. The first thing is, I think a lot of leaders are trying to do what was done in the past. They're trying to replicate previous successful leaders. And we're actually living in a very different world right now, a very different climate. And so for me, the key ingredient is being able to adapt, being able to change the way we do things, because I think so many leaders have looked to so many great icons in the past and say, hey, if I can just be like that individual, I'll be successful. The challenge nowadays, I believe, is that we're actually living in a very different climate, a very different world, very different pressures, very different challenges. And I've given this a lot of thought because I was approached recently by a global leader who's giving a presentation in July in terms of what do I think are some of the challenges and what can we do to actually become better leaders. So I'm quite excited to share those with you right now.
Okay, so what is that one quality? If you had to pinpoint, there would always be more, but we can have a long conversation. What is the one attribute or quality you think we need in order to turn around this crisis, this unique situation?
I believe it's, well, can I just say 2? There's flexibility and adaptability, and also integrity. We've got to have an integrous way of approaching things, plus we have to be very flexible and very adaptable. So if that's kind of 2 main ideas that I think we need to develop.
So why would you put that on top of the list? So let's say flexible and adaptable. I understand integrity. That's a very values-based approach. We certainly need integrity in corporate and in politics. Why flexible and adaptable?
Well, we're living in a very fast-changing world. If you look at technology, we have so many new things coming through every single day. There are so many new ideas. It's getting faster and faster. And unless we pick up the pace as leaders, unless we learn, unless we embrace what is happening around us, we're going to get left behind. We also have a whole new challenge with our new generations. You know, you got these kids coming through that just think differently, they do things differently. And as older, experienced leaders, we're actually not keeping up with the pace because we have to adapt to their way of thinking. We have to adapt to their way of expecting the world to function around them. I've got a son my youngest is 18, and he just was on a different platform in terms of gathering information. And I'm learning from him. I'm learning from what a fast pace they're living in. And unless we adapt to that as leaders and be flexible, I believe we're going to get left behind and we're going to struggle.
All right. So then the big second question that we'll ask leaders across the world as well is, how do we best develop or awaken, even improve this quality or attribute inside the leaders? What do we do?
So the first thing, I've got eight ideas here, so I'll get through them hopefully pretty quickly. The first thing is we have to embrace learning. You know, there's so much we need to learn about the world around us. There's so much we need to read and understand. We think we understand the way the world has functioned in terms of the past and in terms of history, but there's a new history being written. There's a new set of rules being written. And as leaders, we've got to be continuously learning about what that is. You know, listening to people that have done it, listening to people that are learning about it, reading about whatever's being written. So that's the first point. It's just really increasing in our learning. The second thing is we have to understand that we are dealing with a different generation and different generations. There isn't one way of being successful. There isn't one way of dealing with these new generations. Most of them expect to be CEOs themselves within 3 to 5 years, which obviously we think is crazy and ludicrous. But strangely enough, some of them are getting there. We need to understand this new way of thinking. Thirdly, we've got to pick up the pace. It's kind of similar to what I've said already, but we've got to pick up the pace and realize we're living in an immediate gratification world. Answers come immediately. People can just look it up. People can just get it immediately. And unless we are prepared to pick up our pace and to move faster and to be more adaptable and more flexible, we're going to get left behind. The fourth thing is all about accountability. You know, people are working more remotely these days. I mean, look at yourself. You're sitting in the middle of the Kruger Park. You're working very remotely and being very effective at that. And so a lot of companies are needing to deal with people and experts who are working remotely. And we just have to trust that they're going to be accountable. We've got to trust that they're going to do what they are supposed to do. And as leaders, we can't keep to that mentality of, well, why haven't you come into the office? And one of the other points is it isn't a 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30 work environment anymore. To be successful, we've got to be always alert, always attentive, whether it's 6 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. We can't keep having this sort of 9 to 5 mentality. The next point is we have to redesign our leadership style. You know, we may have been successful. You know, a lot of us out there are in our 50s, and we think we've been successful doing certain things. But in this new generation, this new world we're living in, we've got to change. We've got to realize there could be other qualities that we just haven't used, we haven't developed. And we might need to redesign that and rethink the way we do things. We need to also do less and lead more. You know, I was watching another leader the other day speaking about this point, and he was saying that the most important thing we can do daily is spend one-on-one time with our people. Forget about running around trying to be a CEO. How about investing your time with your people, spending one-on-one time, understanding what they really need, understanding how they think, understanding what makes them different. Because if we don't do that, we're going to miss out on some very, very key points and very, very key information about how to lead that team, how to lead that company. And the last thing is really to invest more in our people. You know, we invest so much in products and so much in new business strategies and ideas, which is great. But I believe that unless we invest in our people more than we have before, we're going to start losing them. We're going to start seeing them moving on, because this generation, they move very quickly. They basically say to us, hey, if I don't get satisfaction in 3 years, I'm out of here and I'm off to somewhere else. And unless we invest in them and understand them, we're going to be losing those people. So that kind of encompasses my 8 points that I wanted to get through. We've got to rethink, redesign, move quicker, learn, and invest in our people. That kind of summarizes the thinking that I have around this topic.
Okay, so to finalize then, so the quality or the attribute at the very top is agility, adaptability with integrity, and then those brilliant points that we need to implement to somehow get that to the fore. Thank you so much, Dr. Colin Wilford, all the way from the US. Some wonderful insights, and that'll set the pace for all the other leaders that we'll be interviewing also across the globe. Just a final thought for all our listeners, we are encouraging you to interview your own top leader, yourself. Ask those 2 questions, keep it to a minimal time, and then share it with us on Global Leadership Platform. If you would prefer, you can ask us to interview your leader as well, and we'll do that gladly. Just contact us, info@leadershipplatform.com, 2 P's in the middle. And in fact, you can take your phone, pick it up, and record yourself answering those 2 questions. We encourage you to do all of that. So let's take our planet forward with improved leadership. Dr. Colin Wilford, all the way from the US, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Nice to spend time with you.